going on, guys? Junior's Fishing Company with something I've never made before. I saw this online and I had to make it. So I don't know what you're going to want to call this. This is a 3/8 ounce Northland tackle spinnerbait modified into kind of a quad spinnerbait. Double spin. It reminds me of those classic double spins. If you took out these two smaller willow blades, this would basically be kind of a twin spin, double spin, whatever you want to call it. But the really cool thing is these are perfectly horizontal with the bait. In those traditional double spins, those blades were usually up above the bait. But again, I saw this picture online and it looked really cool. I thought I'd give it a try. So we've got some terminal tackle stuff. I used some large spacer tubing. This is all from Lure Parts Online. Spacer tubing. I've got 2 barrel swivels, and the blades that I used were a number 3 and number 4. So these are number 3, just silver blades, and then these are number 4. These are actually the Regal finish, so they're a little bit more spendy, but they're really shiny, really nice blades. And then just some 15-pound split rings. So I tied this with just black bucktail and just a ton of copper flash just to kind of match the head. Again, that's why I kind of chose these copper willow blades, just to match the head a little bit. But a really simple tie, just 2 stacks of bucktail and some flash. It's really kind of building these arms that took a while, and it's a little bit more work. What I did was I bent this spinnerbait wire back, straight back, and then I put on another piece of wire. I think it was 0.041. I really just did it to match the diameter of the wire that was the spinnerbait, and this is really thick wire. And I just tied them together and super glued them. Is it gonna really hold up? I don't know. I've never made one of these before. We'll just have to see. But a really cool bait. I'm really excited to actually fish this to see how effective it really is. New tie for me, new build for me. If you've seen one of these, drop a comment below. I've really never seen these before. I'd never seen them in stores or fished them myself. So I thought, I'll give it a go. Really cool bait. Let's build it. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my first stack of black bucktail, and really, there's a little bump right here, probably a plastic keeper or whatever you'd want to use it for. I could have filed it down, and I didn't. I usually do, but since I'm only putting 2 stacks of bucktail on this, keeping it really simple on the material side, I really just didn't take the time to do that. I'm just going to kind of measure this out. I don't want this to be too long, just because there's so much going on. There's going to be so much going on with these blades that I'm really just keeping it kind of short, not super short, but, and depending on where you measure this, it's, how long it's going to be. I mean, if you measure all the way from the top of the wire as opposed to the head of the spinnerbait, I mean, it's going to depend. That's a couple inches right there. I'm just going to twist this around. I used really straight bucktail. I didn't want a bunch of curl in this. I don't know why. I was just kind of feeling just keeping it straight. You can put curly on here if you want. I really wasn't in the mood to mess around, and that always adds a little bit more body to your bait if it's super curly like that. So I'll just get that down. Doesn't have to be too pretty. There shouldn't be a ton of flare in this. I'm not really worried about flaring this bait a ton. I just want to make sure that I get this hair pressed down, and I have a nice little amount. I have plenty of space. I wanted to leave some space because I am going to put quite a bit of flash down to match this head. So this is just your standard flashabou. It's not holographic. It's just super, super limp. I think it's the original. That's what they might call it, and just copper. And again, I just wanted to match this head. So I'm going to put a lot of flash in this. I'm not going to quite go down all the way to where my hair goes. I'll kind of just put it right before that. I'll cord up my thread. These wires are going to get in your way. I'll cord up my thread, and I can get this down if I can. And I'll just put that right on what's going to be the bottom of my bait. I'll just get that. I'll just kind of push that, twist it, pinch it around, and I'm going to end up trimming this and then putting it on the other side. I could kind of fold this back, but then you got to end up trimming the length. This should already be tapered on the other side. So I'll just flip this, and then I'm going to put down some glue to keep all this down. So I'll get that, cord up my thread again. I'm building up a nice thick thread bump here, but I'm not worried about that. You're not going to be able to see it anyway. I could add more flash on top of that. This next stack that I do, the last one by the head, you can make a bait as flashy as you can. This is about as flashy of a bait as I've made in a while. I'm not a huge flash guy, especially because there's so many blades on this, but for some reason I wanted this to be a little bit flashier than I normally do. So I'm just going to get that kind of cinched down, pinch all that together, and I'll trim all my extra flashabou off. I could trim up this this hair that's kind of sticking out. I really don't care. Again, you're not going to be able to see it. A couple more tight wraps, and then I'll just work my way up here. And this is where it gets a little bit trickier. But again, so what I did was I trimmed these wires just short enough where they're shorter. I don't know how to explain this. They're shorter than where my farthest tie-in point's going to be. So I'm not going to be hitting my wire constantly. That's the only reason the wires are the length that they are, because that would have been really, really annoying. So before I put anything else down, I'll just kind of load up some super glue here, just to make sure that that slippery flashabou, it's kind of getting all over the place, doesn't go anywhere. Get some glue on, build some durability too. So what I can do is let this dry, and then we're going to get our last stack on. Alright, for this last stack, again, this is super straight hair, pretty long hair. This is a pretty good tail, but I picked this tail based off the fiber straightness instead of the length. So, you know, I have enough black tails where I can kind of get picky about the type of hair I want to use on each. I'm going to end up trimming off quite a bit of this tail, or of this hair, just because I don't need this much length. If I wanted this bait to be longer, then I would, but I don't want this to be too long, and I want a little bit of a taper, so, you know, you got to do what you got to do. I'll cord this up, and what I've always done, I'm going to do again, kind of put a little bit past that head, or that bump, get 2 wraps, and I'll just cinch it down nice and tight, and I've got glue on my fingers now, but I'll just maybe 1 more wrap, and I'll get this combed out so I can spin it around. I didn't want to put 2 stacks up here because you had that lead bump. I should have shown you that. You had that lead bump, and I didn't want any of that pushing up. It still might, even though it's way up here. I just didn't want that hair getting pushed up to add too much bulk. to this bait. So I just opted to put one behind. I kind of thought about doing 3 stacks, but I opted for kind of 2 bigger stacks as opposed to 3 smaller ones, just because I really didn't want to mess around with that lead bump. I could have filed it down too. I do a lot of filing. You can do whatever you want. This is just a bait that I was super curious to make. It's kind of one of those on the whim, a whim video. I thought, why not kind of stray away from some of the stuff I've been doing lately. I kind of want to get back to some of those castable flies too. So I'm going to get that down. That looks pretty good. You can see there's more flare in this. I got it kind of lower on the tail. I wanted a little bit of flare in this one, and I'm just going to cinch down really tight. You can see how close I am to hitting those wires, but I really didn't want to have to wiggle around all the time because I wanted to be able to get this thread pressed right up against that head. So I'm going to get this trimmed up. I can put a link in the description of a video of what I'm about to do. I'm going to trim up this head, and then we're going to keep building this bait. Alright, so bait's trimmed up, polished, whip finished. I got some head cement down. Now it's time to kind of build kind of the bladed parts. So again, I've got this spacer tubing. Again, you can get this pretty much, you could probably get it at Tackle Warehouse too, but lure parts online. I have 4 pieces of these, and the first 2 that I'm going to put on, I'm just going to kind of slide them on, and I'll just do one arm at a time. They're cut to a little bit less than an inch, and then the second one I'm going to put down, they're kind of hard to pick up. It's about half an inch. I just want to make sure, you could put some beads down, so I'll kind of get this blade on, and you're just going to want to make sure, because even no matter how many times I've done this, you want to make sure the blade, in this case, the cup is going to be down, right? So if you kind of spin it in your hand, the cupped part should be always facing the wire of your bait. So I'm going to get my little clevis on there with my little blade, and then I'm going to put my second little plastic piece on there. I'm going to put that on just like that, and you can see I've got quite a bit of room there. It's because I'm going to bend that wire to put the second blade on, but also I need room. If you pinch this too tight, this clevis isn't going to spin. So you want to leave some room here. I'm a little nervous that this plastic won't want to let this clevis spin really well. I even had some small just metal beads. These aren't necessarily fly tying beads, they're just metal beads. But I put them on. I didn't really like how they looked, so I'm going to risk it. It's going to be easy if I need to unbend that wire, and I can put beads on if I need to. It's a pretty easy bait to modify as you need to. So I've got my stuff on there. I'm just going to take this out. I'm going to make sure I hold on to all the stuff. And I really just need to make sure, or decide, I guess, which way I'm going to bend this wire. So if you kind of look at it like this, I'm going to bend this wire up. You could bend it down, you can bend it sideways, you can do whatever. I'm just going to do the same thing on both. Maybe I'll bend it down. Maybe I'll bend it down this way. So I'm going to kind of pinch this in my hand, and I have a small pair of pliers. I think a one with teeth on it is probably gonna do the best for you. So I'm just gonna make sure I want to bend this down. So I'll kind of flip it around in my hand, and I'm just gonna pinch about as much as I can, hold it with my thumb, and I'm just gonna twist as much as I can, and then I can kind of grab it and pinch down. And I'm just gonna, I might need some heavier pliers, but the bigger pliers you have, the more it's gonna twist with it. So I can kind of just pinch this as little as I can. I don't want necessarily to hit that plastic. And I have a little bit of a bend right there. and I'm just gonna push it down. I just need enough room, and once I get a little bit of that bend on there, I'm gonna put on, so I've got these other blades, these bigger ones. These have a little split ring on them with just a small barrel swivel. I think I said it at the beginning, but these barrel swivels are 15 pound, so these are sized in, I guess, their brake strength rather than the size of them. So it might be, every manufacturer might be different. So I'm going to put those on, and then I'm going to get that pinched down as best I can. As long as it doesn't fall off, you should be good to go. Maybe get my small pliers. You're going to want a few different pliers here. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. This is pretty thick metal, and so it should be good to go. It might be nice if the metal is touching, so you know when you're whipping a cast that it's not gonna come, and I'll kind of just bend that a little bit more, and that should be good. Now if you see, I can take this plastic and I can kind of move it. I've got some wiggle room with this blade. I can move this clevis, and so it's gonna be free to spin. If this was really tight on there, that clevis isn't going to spin. So it's really the main thing that you want to be careful with. So I'll grab this next one, and again I'm going to bend it down. So I'm going to kind of bend it towards me on this one, but I'm going to have to put on all the stuff first. So again, just a small piece of spacer tubing, and then I can get my next blade, and I'll put that on there. Again, making sure that that cup side is facing my wire, and then I'll put on my next spacer tubing. And I should have, what was tricky is, again, I cut that wire to be not past this tying point, but I really don't have a ton of room here. I kind of just learned that with my last one. And so I'm going to bend this, and actually I made a mistake, just like a lot of people. This is how it's going to swim. I bent this wire up, so I'm going to do the same thing with the other one. Again, it doesn't really matter. Most people are going to look at this and they're not going to care anyway. So I'm going to pinch this wire really hard, and I'm just going to bend it towards me as much as I can. You want some strong pliers, because for some reason these Northland tackle spinner baits, they're built, man, this wire is nice and thick. So I'll get that, I'll get my next blade on, and you could, with the barrel swivel, you could put two split rings on. You could put one on each side of the barrel swivel, but I've really never seen a big difference. Those barrel swivels spin pretty well. So I'm going to get that pinched down. You don't want to poke your finger. You want to be careful of that. So I'll get this pushed down. Come on. And I'll try and get that metal to touch. Almost. See if I can just get that down. There we go. So it should be good. So that is not going to go anywhere. And really, it's going to be really hard to pinch that little hole, that little bend so tight where the barrel swivel's not going to be able to move freely, just because those things are just hair thin. So if you see, we've got our double bladed, I don't know what to call this. Is it a spinnerbait? The traditional twin spins. But we've got, this is just a super cool bait. When I saw this, I thought, I've got to make one of these things. So, not perfect, just like a fly, you can kind of look at some of this stuff and think, well, I could do this, I could do that. I didn't perfectly necessarily trim these spacer tubings perfectly. I might end up taking this and rebending it a little bit, but maybe I can put this in the vise. You might not be able to see it very well, But there you have it, a 3/8 ounce spinnerbait, twin spin, quad spin maybe. I don't know what you're going to call this. You can call it a piece of junk too if you want. But nice copper blades to match the head. A little bit of silver, copper flash in that black tail. You can hear these blades, but it's really more of a flash bait. You could obviously switch these back blades out for Colorado blades if you're fishing muddier water or something like that. But really, really cool bait. We'll see how it swims, see how it fishes before I make too many of these, because this is kind of the video might not be super long, but the prep and all that stuff, getting all of this tied down, getting the wires cut and sized and measured and bent and all that stuff, it's a little bit more work than I originally imagined it. But Junior's Fishing Company, like and subscribe, drop some comments below. Something you've never seen, something I've never made, but we'll see if the fish like it. We'll see you in the next one.